it's Michelle from Scrap Secrets, and welcome to Team Tiny's Snowy Hop. This is a hashtag hop, so if you click on the hashtag in the description, it'll bring up everybody who is participating's videos. So for those of you who don't know, Team Tiny is a collection of small YouTube channels, less than 1,000 subscribers. So we appreciate the watch time, the support, the comments, the likes, and the subscriptions. So today for this hop, we are going to be making two different cards using some of the same supplies. Oh, I am using the Honeybee, I believe this is a Honeybee Stamps Snowflake stencil. If it's still available, I will link it below in the more information section. And we're going to be doing two different techniques with this. The first one, we're going to use some white pigment ink, which is actually called Sweet Tooth from MFT, and an ink blending brush. So all I'm doing is swiping the brush across the top of the pad. I found this is the way that worked best for me to get ink on there. And then just doing that same motion of swiping it across. So you'll see, I can see now that that section is done. When I was doing this in person, it was really hard to tell that the white was covered. So I was just trying to make sure everything was covered in this. Now I had a second step in mind. Like I said, I was going to emboss it, and I did, and you'll see in a second that I show the embossing mat, and you can see that is actually why I have a Band-Aid on. I cut my finger when I was looking for it. I cut it on one of my Gemini plates, but it didn't work out, so I cut my finger for nothing. So I'm just finishing up this. I did run it through the Cuttlebug 2 different times with different pressures, and it really didn't do the embossed impression that I thought it was going to do. So it's okay. Tried and realized it didn't work. So I was just showing you guys what happened afterwards. And now we're going to be using 2 types of texture paste from, I believe this is, yes, this is Ranger texture paste. The first one is called Opaque Matte, and it says for building dimensional textures. So I wanted to do kind of an ombre look. So I did part of, almost like 3/4 of the stencil with this one. And then I used the Texture Paste Transparent Gloss, which says it dries clear with a glossy finish, because I figured it would give it a little bit of texture and you would still be able to see the snowflakes, but there would be some gloss and shine. I just went over this one first with a very, very thin layer. Actually, by the time we finish doing this, you can see the top ones are almost dry. So I didn't want to have a harsh line, like a straight line across, so I just tried to do kind of make it look more of a natural curve, or, you know, just not a straight line going across. So I cleaned off my palette knife, and then I got out the second texture paste, the transparent gloss. And I started at the bottom. I tried to stay away from it as much, the other part as much as possible, because I wanted to put the glaze back in and I didn't know how much I was going to use. So I'm just going over some of the snowflakes, got both of it, which was, they kind of turn out cool when you see both of it, because it's that ombre look. Because in this one, the blue shines through a little bit. So it actually goes from like a white to almost a blue, just glossy snowflake. So I'm going to wipe the rest of that paste off, put some of it back, and then I am going to wipe my palette brush off, or palette knife off. So what I did was, when I went back in and scraped it off where the 2 met, I didn't put that back in the jar. I just wiped the palette knife off with a paper towel. So now I'm going to show you the reveal. And you can't really tell the difference between where the gloss is until later on. So now we're going to be using the snow pen from Marvy, and this is the first time I've ever used it. So I put it on that scratch piece of paper, and that big blob came out. So I picked up a paintbrush that kind of has paint stuck on it, and it's the bristles are more stiff. So I picked that up just to put the dots down, and I tried to vary the sizes. I tried to go over all of the dots that were on the embossed image. Now the stenciled image. You can actually see it much better on camera than you can in person. It was very difficult for me to see where the dots were, so it's very possible that I missed some of them. So once I did that, I finished up all of the dots. I probably added some too as I was going along, because I just wanted, I just thought that it looked really cool, and I wanted to see how the snow pen worked. I know that I've seen it in a bunch of people's videos, and I've never used the snow pen. So I had my heat gun plugged in, and I started it up just so that it could get hot before I brought it to the paper because I didn't want it to warp the paper as much as it would if you went straight to it and waited for it to heat up. So right now I'm just waiting for it, and hopefully you're going to be able to see the cool effects that it makes. Now I do this twice, and I did it with my left hand in one of the parts just so that maybe you could see it a little bit better, because I know when I've heat embossed in the past, I use my left hand in this one, you can kind of see them puff up. When I use my right hand, sometimes it just gets in the way of the camera. So hopefully you guys can see this texture that is building up. So it's pretty easy to heat up. They were very quick and they just puff right up. It's a really cool thing to watch. So I'm not sure if you can really see it here. I did speed this up a little bit because I didn't want this video to be too long. And I forgot about this hop. I thought that it was next week because I have my days all mixed up. I forgot that it was December. So I apologize, this might go up a couple minutes late. So now I'm using a Sassy and Crafty stamp set, and this one is called Cooler With You. And I used the seal and the polar bear, and I'm going to ink these up with squares that I cut out from an old die set. I believe these might be spellbinders. They kind of have a little bit of a kind of like a border to them, and I was just using the texture paste there to just press things down. And unfortunately the bear moved because it got stuck to the paper, so I am going to have to restamp that. I actually turn it on the back and stamp it again. But since these are brand new stamps, I had to stamp them more than once just because, you know, the film wasn't off of the back of it yet, and this cardstock has a little bit of texture. So there you see me flipping the paper over so that I can restamp the bear. Unfortunately, things like this happen, and I did not have another scrap of cardstock, because normally what I would do is cut out another scrap of cardstock with that die, but I just didn't have the same color cardstock. I actually went through and shopped my stash for these blue pieces for the background, as well as the blue pieces that I'm stamping the image on. So I'm using Catherine Pooler Midnight ink to ink these images up, and I did color these off camera very quickly, nothing fancy. I used Prismacolor colored pencils to do that. So now I'm cutting 2 pieces of just scrap pattern paper, and I'm going to create masks for these 2 because I want them sitting on some ice. Now for the seal, I did not get the very bottom, which I have to stamp over again, and I will just do that. I'll ink it up. It was dry because I stamped that one first, and I didn't have to restamp it like I had to stamp the polar bear. And then I'm going to take a pair of Tim Holtz scissors and cut these out. Now, normally these are not the scissors that I would use to cut out masks, but I couldn't find all my other stuff because I was crafting last night. We had we did a room on Facebook, and I was supposed to be cleaning, and I kind of did, and then I started crafting. So now you can see that I am using my Zig 2A glue pen to put the masks back in place, and I accidentally cut off that part of the seal, and I wasn't sure if I needed it, so I just found where the scrap was, cut out that little sliver, and it just popped right into place after I get the glue off my hands. So it went right in. It turns out I don't really think that I needed it, but you know, I had it just in case. So you don't have to cut out the whole mask because you only need the bottom of it masked off for the ice. And you can see the ice up there. And I wasn't sure how I wanted it. If I had it the little piece up to the left, you really couldn't see much of that little piece. So I decided to actually make it go the other way where it was at the bottom right. Apologize for my hair getting in the way. So now I'm just moving it a little bit closer, so hopefully you guys can see this a little bit better. Inking this up, and I guess I didn't do a great job because I think that oh, there we go. So now I'm inking that up, and it will stamp over the mask, and when I pull the mask off, it'll look like the bear was sitting on the piece of ice, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. So when you do masking, you want to, whatever you want to have in the very front, you want to make sure you stamp that first and work your way back. So now we're doing the same thing with the seal, and again, I didn't know which way I wanted that to stamp. If you do have ink on there and you don't want, I was just hovering over there, but if you wanted to look to see if it was going to go in place, you can actually put a transparency between the stamp and the image, and then that way you won't get any ink transferred over to your image and ruin it. So that was the cards for the day. I did add some of that Marvy snow marker to the seal. And here's everything. There's the outside of the second card, and I'll show you the inside. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys again soon in another video.